We said at the time that the policy was introduced that it would probably be a disaster, and it kind of has been. Albo and Jimbo's brilliant 5% deposit scheme for first home buyers. Everyone who'd studied high school economics said at the time, hang on a moment, that's only going to increase demand for houses, which, when there's no supply in the market, means prices will go up. Don't be silly, said our genius Labor government economists. It won't drive up housing prices by much. Treasury originally forecast that, yes, the deposit scheme would put upward pressure on house prices, but they said, don't worry, it'll only be about 0.6% over 6 years. Were they wrong? Was 0.6% over 6 years a little optimistic? Yeah, just a bit. According to its monthly property data report, Cotality, formerly RP Data, has shown that prices are up as much as 1.9% in just 1 month. 1 month, not 0.6% in 6 years, as the genius overpaid bureaucrats in Treasury seem to think. I reckon some heads need to roll, don't you? Starting with Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer. And let's not let the bureaucrats get away with this horrific error. It might be time for the Secretary of the Treasury, Jenny Wilkinson, to also hand in her resignation after just 5 months in the top job. And some of the economists who crunched those numbers should be put out to pasture too. How can you possibly get it that wrong? Let's break it down. Remember, they said it'd be 0.6% in 6 years that prices might go up because of this harebrained 5% deposit scheme for first home buyers. They laughed and mocked anyone who suggested it would be a disaster for jacking up prices already well beyond the reach of most normal wage earners. So what happened? In the past 28 days, according to Cotality, prices in Sydney and Melbourne are up 0.7%, not 0.6 in 6 years, but 0.7 in 1 month. And in the fastest growing capital cities, it's much worse. Adelaide 1.4%, Brisbane 1.8%, and Perth a whopping 1.9% in 1 month. A Year 10 economics student could have told them, you increase demand when there's a supply shortage and prices go up, Einstein. It ain't rocket science, Jimbo. And while Jimbo and Albo are busy increasing demand in an already overheated market with their harebrained schemes to help home buyers, the idiots in our city councils are busy throttling supply even further. Some councils are more than 70% behind their housing approval targets. University of New South Wales economics professor Gigi Foster told Sky News this week that an objective observer would be sorely tempted to conclude that the intent of this policy amendment is to increase property prices. Part of me thinks that our politicians are so ignorant of basic economics that they're unable to design policies that will in fact bring down property prices. Now, there are, of course, other factors at play in these price rises. It's not all due to the 5% deposit scheme, but it's clear as day that the deposit scheme is a very big one of those factors. Joining me this week for the last time for 2025, our Other Side regulars, economist Jean Tunney from Adept Economics, former Bloomberg data analyst and News Corp journalist Dan Petrie, and Executive Director of the Australian Institute for Progress think tank and researcher Graham Young. Gentlemen, am I being a little too harsh on the Secretary of the Treasury and the Treasurer, do you think?
No.
Seriously? Oh, I thought you were sitting there scolding me there.
Well, there's aspects of this scheme that people haven't picked up on. When we pay people the dole, or unemployment benefits, how rude of me to call it the dole, we pay them the same amount, no matter where they live. And that sends economic signals that if you're in a place that's too expensive, perhaps you need to move out of there. What we're doing with the housing is we pay people in Sydney more than we pay people in Brisbane or Adelaide or Perth, where housing's cheaper and more affordable. So they're actually, it's not just that they're getting more people into the market, they're getting more people into the wrong markets.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's critical. I mean, we've got to try to, but getting people.
Well, it's inequitable. You know, this is a government that's always on about equity, but they're saying, oh, if you live in Albanese's electorate, well, we'll give you more money towards a house than if you live in, I don't know, David Littleproud's electorate.
Yeah.
And that in itself is just a really poor design feature.
Yeah. And that's because the implicit or the guarantee is worth more in dollar terms in those more expensive
because
markets.
Because a 5% deposit is larger in those markets. But don't forget Uncle Albo's rich uncle shared equity scheme, which has the same feature to it, that they'll lend you more money, they'll give you more equity if you're in Sydney or Melbourne than if you're in Perth or Adelaide.
Part of it is where the jobs are, though, right? I mean, and that's the problem. We've got that government employment problem. The fact that so many people are employed by government that they have to be living in the cities, near the CBDs.
Oh, well, you solve that with public transport, or you move your government departments out somewhere. You don't solve it by tiering your welfare system so that it's easier for people to live closer on the public teat like that. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Dan, what are your thoughts on the percentage that this sort of increased demand and this deposit schemes contributed to this problem?
But the criticism was well broadcast by many. The only thing I kind of can observe is the more government, particularly federal government and the state government, for example, particularly in the dying days of Labor government, they had taken to buying up bus terminals and all sorts of weird infrastructure to house people. The more the government seems to get involved, it's the friction.
Yeah.
And it's actually making the problem worse. And so that might be the overreach of Big Brother, but it's quite obvious that a 5% deposit scheme, the more you tamper with the market mechanism, you don't get the intended result. Now, it's lovely to kind of want people into the property market, but I can only see, and in my lifetime, any program like this only increases prices.
Someone once said to me that left-wing governments know how to play checkers, drafts, but they don't know how to play chess. You know, they never think 2 steps ahead. It's like, here's an immediate problem. Let's just deal with that immediate problem. And then that creates another problem.
They're very good at the announceable. I mean, and then, and to be fair, when the Conservatives get into government, they tend to go, well, what do we do now?
Yeah.
We spent all this time tearing down, the centre left, the centre left incumbent. We get in and, we tend to just manage as opposed to the real problem around, and Graham made a good point, you move these functions, you decentralise a little bit, you be pragmatic about it, but Australia's got this problem where it doesn't suffer from a shortage of land. In fact, we don't even suffer from a shortage of towns. But the concentration of work and the crowding out of that, and increasingly you got government believing they're a panacea for everything. They're creating energy companies, they're creating housing companies, they're creating all sorts of NGOs, for want of a better description, and some are arguably not very effective, but they tend to be a draw because they pay better wages, and as a result, this housing crisis we talk about is a function of the fact that the private sector is not really generating the jobs.
Yeah. No.
And that's the problem.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a bit more. 10 million full-time workers in this country and 2.6 million of them work for the government. Let's take a look at the 12-month change in housing prices, according to the November report from Cotality, which was out this week. So you can see Sydney 4%, Melbourne 3.3%. The big increases in Brisbane, Perth and Darwin there, pretty much in the double figures. Perth almost nudging that 10% mark, I guess. Yeah, this is not great. Despite the lower year-on-year sort of house price rise for Sydney, median house prices there reached $1.25 million for the first time in history. This isn't really sustainable, is it, Gene? I mean, it's a pretty scary state of affairs.
Yes, I'd say it is. I think a lot of it's been driven by FOMO and I mean, people just potentially borrowing too much money. So there is a risk there. I mean, we're starting to see like a lot of international comparisons which suggest we're on the wrong path. So certainly it is a big risk. And yes,
the national median capital city value for the whole country, across the whole country now, is almost $1 million. It's $960,000 to get a median house price in Australia, which is a pretty high multiple of the average wage, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, there's that old saying about how Australians, they'll eat dog food before they give up their house or they'll default on their mortgage. So, look, it's a very hard thing to forecast when a correction will come if it does come. But I mean, eventually you'd have to say prices have to get to more reasonable levels, or they have to the rate of increase can't keep going at this rate. Certainly not that 10% for Brisbane or whatever it was. I mean, that's just not sustainable. There has been a lot of investor interest in Brisbane, of course, and that's partly due to the Olympics. There's also, we've had a lot of interstate migration, so migration from New South Wales and Victoria in addition to the international migration, SEQ at Queensland, I think they look great, particularly compared with Victoria.
What do you think's causing the big hike in Darwin?
Darwin, that's a good question. I imagine it's probably there'd be significant investor interest because it would have been seen as a more affordable market. So there's a search for yield. So as other markets go up in price, and then all of the property investors are looking around, where can I invest now to get the yield? And so I think that's probably part of it, because we've seen prices in Brisbane jump up. So I imagine that's part of it. And also I think people would look at Darwin and say, well, there's a good source of ongoing demand there because of the military role in Darwin.
And potential mining, I suppose, in that part of the world. The fact that the dollar isn't worth what it used to be, is a bit of a big part of the problem. Our wealth is being eroded by government continuing quantitative easing or printing of money or those sorts of policies, overspending and borrowing generally. You're in the property market, you look at your house value and you think, the price went up. But in actual fact, with the dollar going down and, in gold terms or in other terms, other value metrics, it's not really going up in value. It's just costing more, and your wealth hasn't really gone up. And if you're a boomer, you're going to be housing your kids if you're boomer or Gen X, right?
Might be low tide, but the waves still look just as high. Certainly on international comparisons, we're the second wealthiest country in the world. And I think that goes to your point in some respects, in that wealth is in housing. And it's not really wealth, like it's not productive. The return on it is not. You used to reckon on a gross return on rental properties of somewhere around 6%. Now it's something like 3%.
Yeah.
You buy BHP shares, you'll get 4%. They'll do the management for you, so forget about the real estate agent, and they'll pay the tax for you, and they'll save money to refurbish the assets as they go along. So depreciation, everything's taken care of. So
you've got to get the capital growth in the house investment, haven't you?
Well,
otherwise it's not.
So most housing investors do it via financial engineering. And they're in it for the capital gains. And I think one of the dangerous things in this 5% deposit is 5% is really a very tiny deposit. And prices can fluctuate by 5% in either direction. Even in a rising market, you might suddenly find you're in a spot where, for some reason, you bought when there was a bit of a peak and it's all fallen back. So
now
you owe
more than you've got to, more than your value of your house.
Yeah. So the government, if they're underwriting your insurance, they've actually got a vested interest in making prices go up. So we've got an affordability crisis. We need prices in real terms to come down. Now, there's ways you can kind of manufacture that a bit with a bit of inflation. So it might nominally look like you haven't lost any value, but over time you do.
Like Giselle Foster said, it looks like they're trying to keep the value.
Well, I don't know that they know what they're trying to do. We certainly had Claire, what's her name, the housing minister. Yeah, she said, we want house prices to go up.
Yeah, I think she meant at a healthy pace. But
So the irony is young people are voting for the party that wants to make housing less affordable, and young people are saying we don't have a future because we can't afford a house. And if you can't afford a house, you can't afford a family, and your retirement's going to look pretty rocky.
All right, quick break. We'll be back to talk more with our panel of experts on the housing situation and what we can do about it. Did you know that with a virtual private network or VPN on your computer, tablet or phone, you can log into your favourite streaming services like Netflix from home with an internet address from anywhere in the world and watch all the shows that they offer in other countries, including stuff in different languages? And using a VPN to route all your internet traffic through a third-party server means that big corporations and big government can't spy on you. If you sign up now with private internet access, we think they're the best VPN servers out there. As a viewer of the other side, you can get 83% off the price of your subscription and get online for less than $3 a month. Check it out right now. Go to piavpn.com/otherside. That's piavpn.com/otherside. It's a great service, a rock bottom price, and supporting our sponsor, you are helping to keep the other side going and growing. That was a segment clip from our weekly Friday night news show, The Other Side, which you can watch in full by simply going to YouTube and searching up The Other Side Australia. Then you'll find our full shows playlist. You can also find all of our full shows and our segments on our own website, othersidetv.com.au. That's othersidetv.com.au. Help us build a whole new Aussie media by joining us over there and signing up for the exclusive side.